Welcome everybody. It is 6:31 Verizon Standard Time. It is September 4th, 2018. We're here for a regular meeting of the Laramie City Council. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Could you all please rise and join me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Gabriel.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
McKinney.
Here.
Deacus.
Here.
Shumway.
Here.
Schuster.
Here.
Stoner.
Here.
Pierce.
Here.
Somerville.
Here.
That's 9 present and 0 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you. We have no proclamations or presentations this evening, but we do have several public hearings. City Clerk, can you read the notice for the first public hearing?
Notice is hereby given that on the 8th day of August 2018, an application was received in the office of the City Clerk for a new special malt beverage permit, number special -2 for Roxy's Catering LLC, doing business as Roxy's Catering LLC, location of permit at University of Wyoming Arena excluding Portal 5, 1000 East University, Laramie, Wyoming. Public hearing to hear comments or protests relative to this permit application will be held Tuesday, September 4th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. in council chambers of City Hall. Action on this item, on this application, will be considered at the regular council meeting on Tuesday, September 4th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you. So at this time, I'll open this public hearing to any comments from the public on the special malt beverage permit for the Arena Auditorium. Anybody who wishes to make comment on that? Okay, seeing none, I will close that public hearing. City Clerk, can you read the notice for the second public hearing, please?
Notice is hereby given that on the 8th day of August 2018, an application was received in the office of the City Clerk for a new special malt beverage permit, numbered special -3 for Cowboy State Brewing LLC, doing business as Cowboy State Brewing, location of permit at University of Wyoming Football Stadium, excluding the Wildcatter and Beer Garden, East Grand Avenue and 22nd Street, Laramie, Wyoming. Public hearing to hear comments or protests relative to this permit application will be held Tuesday, September 4th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. in council chambers of City Hall. Action on this item will be considered at the regular meeting of the City Council on Tuesday, September 4th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you. So at this time, I'll open that this public hearing to comments on the special malt beverage permit for the War Memorial Stadium. Is there anybody who wishes to make comments on this permit application? Seeing none, we'll close that public hearing. City Clerk, can you read the notice for the third public hearing, please?
Notice is hereby given that the City Council will hold the following public hearing at 6:30 p.m. on September 4th, 2018 in the City Council Chambers, Laramie City Hall, 406 Ivinson Avenue, Laramie, Wyoming, to take public comments following original ordinance number 1987, VAC-18-01, submitted by the University of Wyoming requesting the vacation of the entirety of the north-south alley within Block 129, Union Pacific Railroad Company, second edition, to the City of Laramie, Albany County, Wyoming, the 80-foot wide,
Lewis Street.
Yeah, the 80-foot wide Lewis Street right-of-way located adjacent to Lot 8, an alley to the southwest corner of Lot 1, Block 129. Union Pacific Railroad Company, second edition, to the City of Laramie, Wyoming, Albany County, Wyoming, and the 80-foot wide 10th Street right-of-way located adjacent to Lots 1, 2, 3, and 4, Block 129, and adjacent to Block 130, Union Pacific Railroad Company, second edition, to the city of Laramie, Albany County, Wyoming. Said area is approximately 40,904 square feet in size. All applications, plans, and specifications relative to this matter are available for review at the City of Laramie Planning Office at 405 Grand Avenue, Laramie, Wyoming. Anyone wishing to be heard should be present or may be represented by his or her agent at the meeting.
Thank you. So at this time, we'll open the public hearing regarding the vacation of Lewis Street in the 9th and 10th Street areas. Is there anybody who would like to give comment on that? Okay. But seeing nobody, I'm going to close that public hearing. Move on to item number 4, announcements. City Manager, do we have any announcements tonight?
No announcements, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Item number 5, disclosures by city council members. Does anybody have any disclosures on any of the items on the consent or regular agenda this evening? Seeing none? All right, we'll go to item number 6, consideration of the agenda. Vice Mayor.
Right, I move that the agenda be set as submitted.
Second.
Second by Councilor Shumway. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Vice Mayor.
Right, I move that the consent agenda be approved and that each specific action on the consent agenda be approved as indicated.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Gabriel. City Clerk, can you do a roll call, please?
Gabriel.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes.
Kalikas.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Stoner.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you. That motion carries. That does complete the Feeding Laramie Valley item. Thank you all very much for attending tonight. Unless you want to stay, you're always welcome to stay. So we'll move on to item number 10 on the regular agenda. Councilor Schuster?
Thank you. The item title is bid award for the 2018 overlay. I move to award the 2018 overlay project to Knight River Corporation of Cheyenne, Wyoming in the amount of $397,122.50, along with a contingency of $39,712.25 for a total amount of $436,834.75 to approve the contract therefore and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. Director Smith?
Your Honor, the Mayor, members of council, as you know, one of our pavement maintenance techniques is a 2-inch overlay of city streets. We also do crack filling, patching, and chip seal, but this is the 2018 overlay. It includes the intersection of Pierce and Van Buren, as well as Pierce between Snowy Range and Wyoming Avenue. Bid alternate 1 is Beaufort Street between 17th and Ames Court, and bid alternate 2 is Beaufort Street between Ames Court east towards Falcon Court. For your reference, the average pavement condition index on Pierce is 42. As you recall, that's on a scale of 0 to 100, so it's below average and starting to decline. Beaufort Street is 38 on the same scale. This project was bid per the city's purchasing policies. Bids were opened on July 25th. We had 2 bidders, Knife River with a base bid of $207,440. Based on the budget that we have available, staff is recommending an award of the base bid, bid alternate 1, and then a portion of bid alternate 2. And that brings the total contract amount up to $397,122.50 plus the contingency. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for Director Smith? Councilor Hanson?
Just one question. Compared with previous years and the amount of overlay we do this year, is it less, is it more, is it about the same?
Your Honor, the Mayor, Councilmember Hanson, it's roughly the same. The one thing that affects asphalt prices the most is oil prices. So we have a reasonably flat oil market right now, so asphalt hasn't gone up too much. So
Yeah.
we're about roughly the same.
Roughly the same?
Yes.
Thank you.
Other questions for Director Smith? I have a quick one. So you gave us the condition index now. After we do the overlay, do you know about how high that raises the condition index on the streets?
Your Honor, right after the overlay, it'll be 100.
Perfect. All right.
And then we monitor it and inspect it. It'll decline off of that, but it'll be in the 90s, within a couple of years.
Okay. Councilor McKinney?
How far is it from Wyoming to Van Buren? 3 blocks?
Probably.
How come we're not doing that 3?
That was overlaid not that long ago. If you go out there, it's been overlaid within the last few years from,
Is it gonna be the same height?
yes.
Are you cutting anything off or you're just laying it over?
It'll just be an overlay, yeah.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, so just for edification for folks paying attention out there, you said Pierce had an index of
42.
42, and Beaufort had an index of 38?
38.
Thank you.
All right. Councilor Gabriel?
And then just to follow up on Charles's comment, what you overlaid several years ago, how does that stack up now with the rating?
The other piece of Pierce, I don't have those numbers off the top of my head. I can get those out of our most recent
Just curious.
pavement study.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Director Smith? Councilor Hanson?
42 and 38 is pretty bad, isn't it?
It's getting there, yes. It's declining and dropping off that curve pretty good. They're going to deteriorate quickly after this if we don't take some action.
Do we have any other streets that are in that neighborhood as far as rating?
We have streets in that condition or lower all over town. There's a whole bunch of them, yeah.
So according to what process do you choose, have you chosen these 3?
Well, our technical staff, our street maintenance staff, looks at all of those streets and determines what might be the priority. And for example, Pierce is a little bit higher traffic volume, so it's a higher classification street, so we're going to try to address that. We also have the Curtis Street interchange reconstruction coming up, so we're trying to keep that roadway up at a higher level prior to that detour going into an effect. And Beaufort Street has just been a priority for the last several years, so we're trying to continue that overlay east from where we left off last year.
So basically what you're saying is traffic is a consideration
Yes,
as to
yes,
how much
yes.
traffic there's on. Thank you.
Councilor McKinney?
The road past Van Buren, what's that one, Mill? Or, I forget the name of that street.
Madison?
Where the concrete, the curb and gutter ends?
Yeah,
Has that been overlaid between Van Buren and there?
I
And
believe
what-
so. And it may have been more than 5 years. I've only been here 5 years, so I think it was before that, but I couldn't tell you exactly when. But it's in reasonably good condition.
Any other questions? Thank you, Director Smith. Do we have any comments from the public on this item? All right, seeing none. Any comments or discussion from council on this item? Okay. City Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Hanson. Polikis.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Stoner.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you. That motion carries. Move on to item number 11. Councilor Gabriel.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move to award the bid for one new refuge truck with trade-in, Unit 675, to Peterbilt of Wyoming in Cheyenne. And the total amount is $340,951.
Could it be 669, not 675?
Yeah, you read item number 12.
Yeah, yours is 11, mister.
Yeah.
Strike that. We'll start over in just a second.
Oh, we had the wrong one up there, sorry.
That one's mine. See, teach us.
There we go.
There you go.
So this one is, I'm going to restate my motion,
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Please.
I move to award the bid for one new automated refuge truck with trade-in. It's Unit 669 to Peterbilt of Wyoming, Cheyenne. And this amount is $234,960.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. Director Smith.
Your Honor, the Mayor, members of council. The Public Works Department Solid Waste Division budget includes funding to purchase one new 14 cubic yard automated refuse truck, and this is used in the commercial sector, picking up commercial dumpsters and so forth. The truck was placed out for bid and advertised according to the purchasing policies. Bids were open on August 7th, 2018. We received 3 bids from 2 different companies. Peterbilt bid 2 separate bodies that met the required specifications. And you can see the list there. We are recommending this be awarded to the low bidder, Peterbilt of Wyoming, in the amount of $234,960.
Questions for Director Smith on this? Counselor Hanson.
2 questions. How old is the one we're turning in, and how much mileage has it on? And, you know, these are very expensive machines when they are new. How come the trade-in is this low? You know, I like $10,000, $20,000 as a trade-in on a $250,000 piece of equipment. How come this? Why do they lose so much of value?
Your Honor, the Mayor and Councilmember Hanson, there's a lot of moving parts on these trucks, a lot of hydraulics and moving parts, and they're used a great deal. So they depreciate fairly rapidly. The original purchase price on the one that we're trading in was just under $145,000. So they've increased in value by virtually $100,000.
They've gone up that
Yes.
much in price? Wow.
So depends on the vehicle and equipment that you're trading in, but as you can see, different vendors will place a different trade-in value on those, and quite often they'll sell those almost immediately to, you know, maybe some private sector company that's trying to get in the business or looking for actually even parts for a similar vehicle. But they depreciate very rapidly because of the use and of the vehicles. And
Speaking of which, how old was the truck that we're turning in?
Brooks, do you remember, know how?
It's the oldest one in the fleet. I want to say it's 12 years old.
Okay, thank you. One of those
It was
hydraulic
due for
ones.
trade a couple of years ago,
Uh-huh.
and we put it off. It's time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions for Director Smith? I am curious, what was the difference in body style that Peterbilt, or what was the difference in the trucks between the 2 bids for Peterbilt? And any idea why one truck they were willing to give us $10,000 for the truck trade-in, the next truck, the same trade-in, it's worth $20,000? Seems odd.
Depends on what they were selling.
Your Honor, if you look at the bid recommendation that came from Fleet, the Peterbilt, they offered 2 different bodies. One was a Labrie body and the second was a New Way body. And I couldn't tell you the difference other than size, unless, you know, Brooks wants to add something to that. But just 2 different bodies on the same chassis. And I would suspect that they offered a different trade-in value because they really wanted us to buy this one.
Fair enough. All right. Any other questions for Director Smith? Thank you. Are there any comments from the public on this item? Okay, seeing none. Discussion by council? Any comments? All right, City Clerk, can you do a roll call, please?
Stoner.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Polikis.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you. That motion carries. All right, Councilor McKinney, item 12, please.
I move to award the bid for one new refuge truck with trade-in Unit 675 to Peterbilt of Wyoming, Cheyenne, Wyoming, in the total amount of $340,951.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Schuster.
We're definitely in sync.
Director Smith.
Your Honor, the Mayor, members of council, as with the previous item, the Public Works Department Solid Waste Division budget includes funding to replace one new cab-over dual-arm refuse truck. That's a typical residential collection vehicle that we use in alleys and around town, which is why it has two arms. The truck was placed out for public bid and advertised according to the purchasing policies. Bids were opened on August 7th. We again received 3 bids from 2 different companies, with Peterbilt bid 2 separate bodies. One of the Peterbilt bids and the CMI Tico bid did not meet the minimum specifications. So when we get to the recommendation section, that's why we're recommending the high bid, which is very unusual. We rarely do that, but the CMI Tico bid out of Casper, Wyoming simply just didn't meet very many of the specifications. And when we bid a piece of equipment or a vehicle like this, we list all the various specifications in the bid, and they have to specify whether they've met that specification or not. And the CMI Tico bid either didn't address it or did not meet the specifications. The Peterbilt of Wyoming, the second low bid, that truck was actually demoed here in town, and it's just too large. We have some alleys that are only 16 feet wide, and a larger vehicle just doesn't work for us. And they had trouble pulling them out of the alleys and going across the streets. They were scraping the vehicle on the ground, and it honestly, it just simply wouldn't work for us. So that brought us to Peterbilt of Cheyenne, their second bid, totaling $340,951. So that's the process that staff went through in analyzing these bids. So I'd recommend that we award it to Peterbilt of Wyoming out of Cheyenne for $340,951. It's still within budget.
Questions for Director Smith? Counselor Hanson?
Thank you, Your Honor. Same question as I had before. I'm looking at the trade-in. We're trading in the same vehicle, aren't we?
Yes.
And I mean, the trade-in varies between $80,000, $70,000, and then the one we are looking at, $18,000. Is somebody raking us over the coals here?
Your Honor, the Mayor.
It's the same vehicle, isn't it?
Councilmember Hanson, I've not been on that side, but that's pretty common. They'll play with those numbers. If you go buy a new vehicle and you're trading in a vehicle, they'll play with those numbers to get it to the price you want. And that's simply what they're doing there. They're playing with the numbers, trying to make it an attractive bid. So that, I don't know any more than that. A lot of times, for example, when we're bidding the Caterpillar equipment out of the landfill, all of the vendors give us high trade-in values. But as you can see here, it varies depending on the vehicle that we're purchasing. And I honestly can't explain it very well because I've never worked on that side of the...
If I may follow up, I read the description. It says the lower bids did not meet the minimum specifications. So obviously, they knew that only one of them meets the specifications, and then the trade-in is that low. I bought cars before, and quite frankly, I think somebody is taking us for dummies here. So I just wanted to mention this. Cities have money anyway, so they'll pay for it. It just irks me, to see a difference between $80,000 and $70,000 and $18,000 for the one that meets the specifications. Rats.
Other questions for Director Smith on this item? Are there any comments from the public on this item? All right, seeing none. Discussion by council.
I make my point.
Let's hear more. Come on, Klaus.
No, that's,
I do have, I guess, a clarification for the city manager. We don't have the option to modify the bid and tell them we'll award it to them if
no.
they give us the same trade-in. We either have to accept it or reject it as it stands, right?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Councilor Palikas?
Anything?
I believe we always have the option to keep the vehicle and not accept the trade-in. And as our director said, what it really comes down to is whether, number one, whether you want to keep the vehicle or not, but the second part of it is how much you want to pay for the new piece of equipment, and if you pay for the lowest price, it all comes out equal. You really, it's kind of like a new car is what was suggested.
But this is the highest one, yeah.
City manager.
Mayor and council, you certainly have the option to reject.
And we do, good point, we always have the option to keep the vehicle if we think that it's not worth anything.
Keep paying for repairs.
So city manager, if I can clarify, can we modify it to accept the highest bid without the trade-in? And then ask staff to dispose of the truck otherwise?
I don't.
I think you better get,
Mayor, I think the clerk wants to comment. Feel free. So I'm not quite sure if we can, since we advertised the bid with trade-in, but I'm not positive.
A couple items before we did that, we pulled the trade-in off the items.
And I must say, I'd feel at a bit of a disadvantage. I'd hate to advise you in absence of your attorney incorrectly, but for me, the rejection of bid is clear in statute. And then I think Earl is correct that you did take a creative approach recently with respect to the trade-in. That presumably the city attorney blessed, so.
All right, fair enough. Well, I guess I will add, I share Councilor Hansen's frustrations. I don't like it when people play with numbers like this. Personally, I don't shop at dealerships that do that, so I'm gonna vote no and reject the bid, even though I know solid waste needs it, so. Any other comments or discussion? City Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Palikas,
yes.
Shumway,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Stoner,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
McKinney,
No.
Pierce,
Yes.
Somerville.
No.
That's 7 yeses and 2 noes, Your Honor.
Thank you, that motion carries. All right, move on to item number 13, Councilor Palikas.
Thank you. This is for a new, hang on, this is for a new malt beverage permit for Roxy's Catering LLC. The location of the permit is the University of Wyoming Arena Auditorium. I would move that the City Council approve the application for special malt beverage permit number special 2 to Roxy's Catering LLC, DBA Roxy's Catering, location of the permit at the University of Wyoming Arena Auditorium, excluding Portal 5, Laramie, Wyoming, for the licensing term September 5th, 2018 through May 7th, 2019, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
Second by Councilor Schuster. City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Honor. Grab my computer. So on August 8th, we received an application from Roxy's Catering LLC, doing business as Roxy's Catering, for a special malt beverage permit to allow them to be able to serve in the arena auditorium. This permit would allow them to serve beer and malt beverages only, excluding Portal 5. The reason Portal 5 has been excluded is the university would like to still allow the sale of wine from that single location. So the entire Arena minus Portal 5 has been included in the permit request.
Okay. Questions for the city clerk? Counselor Hanson?
Is then a separate permit coming forwards for the sale of wine in Portal 5, or?
That would come separately, you're correct, Counselor Hanson. Yeah,
Somebody else can do that, whatever.
right. Another LLC that has a retail liquor license or resort license, yeah.
Other questions? Counselor McKinney?
Is this gonna be just secluded to her, for Roxy's? No one else can serve?
Counselor McKinney, through you, Mayor. This does exclude anyone else from pulling an alcohol catering permit for the Arena Auditorium, minus Portal 5, with that one exception.
Adding on to that, is there anybody else that's wanting to serve and do a catering out of there, or has there in the past?
Currently, Roxy has a contract with the university to do the sale of alcohol for all of their game events in the Arena Auditorium. And that's why you're seeing this. It's an alternative that the university has agreed to, where they will limit the sale of wine at their events. In the previous year, they had pulled alcohol catering permits for each location that they were allowed to serve beer and wine from. This year, they've made a modification to only be able to serve beer and malt beverages, with the exception of Portal 5. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So can they, if she gets this permit, can they, if somebody wants to serve alcohol there, they can't, but can they go to her and get a permit from her to serve at a location?
No, this
Nothing.
is strictly for Roxy's Catering LLC, for the license year that we have set forth. So from September
One individual in the
5th,
city of Laramie serve alcohol at the auditorium.
correct. We can't lay one permit on top of another,
That's what I was wondering.
yeah.
Counselor Hanson?
One more question. How many stations to serve does this include? Is this just one place where the alcohol is being served? That's a fairly large facility, or 10, or 50, or 3, or what?
So
I have
this-
no idea.
This doesn't give an exclusion to how many they are allowed to have. Last year, they served, for the majority of the season, from 4 locations and Mickey's, which is their Cowboy Joe Club area within the arena. This year, they're excluding Portal 5, so my understanding is they'll probably have 4 locations still, Mickey's being one of those locations that they're serving beer and malt beverages from.
4 locations.
4 locations.
So I have a quick question, clarification for you, just so I make sure I have this correct. So if we issue this permit, if a third company or an outsourced company comes and rents the Arena Auditorium for like a concert or something, they cannot come and get a malt beverage permit and serve alcohol. They will have no choice but to use Roxy's Catering, no
That's
matter what.
correct.
Okay. Any other questions for the city clerk right now, before I invite the applicant up, Vice Mayor?
I have one. Last year when we did this, did it also include the malt beverage permit, or was it just, we've not done this?
They had to pull a liquor permit for every single event.
Right, I thought it was beer too.
So they served beer and wine from each of their locations. An alcohol catering permit allows them to sell beer and wine.
Okay.
So it kind of gives them that full circle of what they can serve.
And city clerk, could you also address what's required by state statute in terms of not layering liquor licenses? Because we know Roxy's on Grand possesses, I think it's a retail license, correct?
Correct.
Correct. So how does that work with layering of these licenses on top of that?
They require a separate LLC for each license. And this has met their requirements. We have sent it off to the Liquor Division for review, and they had no concerns to send back to us.
All right. Any other questions for the city clerk? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Hensley? Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you, council and mayor. My name is Roxy Hensley, and I am the owner of Roxy's on Grand, and my son is with me tonight. His name is William Garrett Hensley. We have the exclusive contract with the University of Wyoming to sell beer and wine at the auditorium arena for this coming year plus an additional year, and the right of refusal for the following 2 years after that. We did have the exclusive right to sell the beer and wine last year as well, but given the new ordinance that this city council passed in the spring of last year and the many public conversations that I had with you all, and the university and the Wyoming Liquor Commission, we all felt that it was appropriate to obtain this permit through a new established LLC, because in the Wyoming state statute and in the ordinance, in order to get this particular permit, I cannot get it as a retail liquor license holdee. I can only do it as an individual or in an organization. So we specifically, at your direction, set up an LLC, which is Roxy's Catering LLC, obtain that insurance per the University of Wyoming contract requirement, as well as the other documentations from the Secretary of State in order to get this permit.
Any other comments? Questions, Councilor Hanson?
For what you just said, are we then granting you, or would we be granting you a license for 4 years now, or?
No, it goes yearly. It's a yearly, I'll come and.
Annual renewal.
Yes, I will come back next year. You will see me again, and request the same. So as far as the exclusion of Portal 5 in the arena, under the ordinance or this malt beverage permit, we are not allowed to sell wine. It's only for malt beverages and wine-based products, which is White Claw. That's what we're serving this year. And so in order to serve wine at the request of the University of Wyoming and the requirements of the not allowing us to overlay a permit over a permit, we excluded that one portal. And given that I have the exclusive contract to serve these beverages at the University of Wyoming, I will be requesting that permit through my retail liquor license with the city clerk.
Other questions for the applicant? Councilor Palikas?
You stated, so you have Roxy's, the corporation, has a contract with the university for X number of years to sell beer at the arena auditorium.
Yes, so Roxy's Catering, we amended our contract with the University of Wyoming. We added an addendum, and so we currently have a contract through Roxy's Catering to serve at the University of Wyoming, so we split it off.
That was my question, is
Yes.
whether it carried over. Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Hensley, can I ask you a clarifying question? Then maybe we don't have the right contract in front of us. The contract that I have says that the contract is with Hensley Property Holdings, DBA Roxy's on Grand. It doesn't have a name change to it.
Okay.
Would that
And
be-
I know that we provided all that information because I met with the University of Wyoming attorney, and we brought that forward in our application, so I don't know what's in front of you.
Okay.
Oh.
We do have a change to the addendum on,
It's probably the addendum that you should have that as well.
okay.
So.
City Clerk?
If you look in 2, it says for the arena auditorium to Roxy's Catering LLC.
Okay.
its rights and responsibilities, and for war memorial to Cowboy State Brewing LLC.
Okay,
Two.
thank you. Other questions for the applicant?
I would also like to advise the council that for the basketball season, for the boys or the men's games, we usually open up 4 portals. And then we have Mickey's, which is the Cowboy Joe hospitality area, which we help assist with that because it's a hospitality area. And we don't do any selling out of there before the game. So, but it is 4 stations. For the girls' basketball season, given the attendance, because we know what the attendance is ahead of time, could be up to 2 to 4 portals, including Mickey's. And during the basketball season, we employ probably around 20 to 30 students and retired folks who help us out. They're tips trained through the Wyoming Liquor Commission, as well as our Pretty Regiment training down at our establishment.
Counselor Hanson?
Now, 4 stations, I think there was a discussion at one point as far as policing underage drinking, because there are lots of people underage going to games. Do you then have somebody at every station who will check IDs, or how does this work?
Okay. We work very closely with the Wyoming Liquor Commission and also with the University of Wyoming per our contract. And we have scanners that we get from the Liquor Commission, and there's, we scan the IDs and then we give them a wristband. And there's 4 tabs. And it's allowing that each attendee is only allowed to have 4 alcoholic beverages. Okay, so scanning the ID prevents attendees from going to get another wristband. Now, we do have attendees that attempt to do that, but because of those scanners, it backs up and it says, you've already been scanned, you do not get another wristband. So it's very well regulated. And we provide that staff as well.
And there's a maximum of 4 drinks, you just said.
Yes, and it's beer and beer and wine, excuse me, and then we have the wine seltzers, which is the White Claw. The beer has, the alcohol content cannot be over 6%, so we don't do the high-end IPAs or the 10% alcohol, beer, 10% beer alcohol content, so it's 6%.
One follow-up question.
Okay.
It strikes me, I'm no specialist in this, but it strikes me, a game lasts about, an hour and a half, 2 hours, 4 drinks. Does that constitute, for the police department, for example, being over the limit driving home?
The 4 drinks, it depends on that individual and their body weight, so I can't answer that, but
I could be lucky.
perhaps. So I can, we do statistics with the University of Wyoming, and per the scanning as well, we're able to do an average about how many drinks attendee consumes, and it's on the average of 2 per event, and that even includes football, when you have 3 to 4 hours. So, and given the price of the beers, because they're $7 and $8, it kind of, keeps people from drinking more than the allotted 4 drinks.
It strikes me, I would be happier if you limited it to, very simply because folks have to drive home afterwards. Most of them don't walk. I can walk because I live so close. It seems like we are talking out of two sides of our mouths here if we want to cut down on driving and drinking and allowing that many drinks, in this amount of time. Just an observation. I know that's the way it's written, but it strikes me as being counterproductive as far as drinking and driving is concerned.
And I believe the trustees and the folks at the University of Wyoming, as well as myself, because it is my license that I'm on the line for, I guess, we're very cognizant of that fact, and of course, we train our staff to be responsible.
Any other questions for Ms. Hensley? So I have one more for you.
Sure.
If you can't tell, I have a little question about locking out other vendors from potentially being able to sell alcohol at the arena or the stadium, which is the next item. And your contract says, and I'm just going to read the paragraph here, it says, whereas under the Stadium Vendor Services Agreement, a signer provides sales of beer and wine at various University of Wyoming games as designated by the university. And it refers to the sale at various University of Wyoming games several times in the page that we have. Do you think that addresses these third party? I mean, the arena auditorium does get used for other functions from other third party, concerts, that kind of stuff, and your contract doesn't address serving alcohol at that. And if we give this permit, it'll lock everybody else out. They won't have an opportunity to do that.
And again, given our contract, we have the exclusive right. We just did the concert on Friday night, and we have that's encompassed in our contract. As far as excluding other people out, they had the opportunity to bid on this contract when it was open up last year, so.
So a clarifying question, do you think that the contract language that says specifically at University of Wyoming games, that covers any event that might be held in the arena auditorium? Because that's what the contract says. It doesn't refer to any other events. It only says University of Wyoming games.
And, how can I, like I said, the university doesn't have a policy to serve alcohol at any other events except for, or to sell alcohol at any other events except for the games and the concert. I would suppose that if they decided to bring in another event, I know we would be the first one to be approached to do it, and we would, per our contract, we would be required to do it. I hope that answers your question.
Counselor Schuster?
The equipment in there, is it the university's or yours?
It's the universities, and we maintain it.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Hensley? Okay, thank you. Are there any comments from the public on this item? Please come forward. If you can identify yourself for the record, and then when you're done, there is a sheet of paper if you can sign in for us.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jessica Nada. Nice to see everybody. I was thinking as she was talking, this isn't what I was here for tonight to make a comment on. However, if I remember correctly, or if I'm aware, from the way I understood it, that the Roxy's Catering LLC is different from the LLC that's operating on 3rd and Grand. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So, I believe the way the Secretary of State registration for LLCs is if you have a revenue under either $250,000 a year or $500,000 a year, your filing fee for the LLC to keep it in good standing is $50. But then once you break that point of, and I can't remember the number specifically off the top of my head, but once you break that point of either $250,000 or $500,000, then you have to pay a 5% tax rate on your revenue. I'm not an attorney, I don't practice tax law, but if LLCs keep breaking and forming a new LLC, then they're avoiding those tax rates as opposed to paying $50 a year to remain in good standing. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to make public comment on this item this evening? All right, seeing none. Discussion by council. Any comments? Councilor Shumway.
I have a question for the city clerk. Should the council deny this permit to Roxy's, could the University of Wyoming use their license and then use Roxy as their vendor?
They cannot. The special malt beverage permit that they have is permitted specifically for the beer gardens in the bottom of the Union. That is the only location that the university can serve and sell alcohol themselves. Does that answer your question?
It does. So what would happen then if we deny this, then really there'd be no alcohol sales for?
Oh, sorry, Joe. Counselor Shumway. I believe what you were asking then, if you deny this special malt beverage permit, we go back to the way that we did it last year, which is Roxy would then be required to pull a alcohol catering permit for each location that she would serve and sell from within the arena auditorium. Yeah.
Discussion, comments, Councilor McKinney?
I have a question for
Please.
clerk. So if we deny this and somebody else comes in, they can still purchase a permit to sell in one of those? Sure. Per last year's?
University has.
If you deny this,
Would it allow another company to come in and serve?
so anytime alcohol is sold or served on campus, it has to be approved by the University of Wyoming. So I can't say that they would be able to because I don't give
If it
them
was
permission, the
approved by the
university.
university, then they could come get a permit and serve.
They'd have to work it out.
Yeah, they'd probably have to review their contract with Roxy to make sure that they're not violating the contract that they currently have with Roxy. I don't know what that contract says specifically, the whole contract, so I can't tell you for certain.
Vice Mayor.
So when we did this last year, what's the fiscal difference between this year's amount and last year's amount?
I did not bring that number with me. It's a significant difference.
Significantly less.
Yeah. Last year, I want to say it was close to 10,000.
17?
17,000.
Roxy said 17,000. Let me see if I can find Angie's. That would be both. If it's 17,000, that would definitely be both.
I don't remember again that.
Isn't it on the application? 1340? That's the prorated amount for this one.
Sorry.
Angie had presented you some information, I believe, a while back, but I'm not sure that I know where she had that. Let me see if I can find it.
While she's, just a second.
Sure.
While she's looking, Councilor Palikas?
Well, it seems like this discussion's going in different directions right now. I remember the discussion we had when we were changing the liquor laws, and one of the problems was because of the wine sales and because of the having to take a permit out for every single station. It was a I don't want to say a nonprofit, but it was a business that was not doing very well, given the amount of money that was spent on the permitting. And during that discussion, we kind of came up with this concept of maybe this concept that's being presented to us tonight would work. Other than that, everything's from what I can see, is the same. The university has a contract with their new LLC, which is tagged on to the license of the existing LLC for the full permit. Did I say something wrong, or?
No, you were fine. I found Angie's spreadsheet that she had previously presented to me.
Okay. Anyway, so I mean, there's a contract between the university and Roxy's to provide a service. The contract was for a certain amount of time, and part of that contract required us to provide a license for that to happen, which is what we're talking about tonight. And I think it's all pretty clean from what I've heard so far.
City Clerk.
So to clarify, the numbers Angie had come up with for the 2017-2018 seasons was $13,775. She said it would have been $17,775 at current rate, with $75 per permit at the same number of locations and games.
4 times whatever.
Can I add one thing to my comments
please.
too? If we were to deny this and another company were to come forward, they're going to be faced with the same challenges that Roxy's faced with if we were to go back to the old permitting system of having to permit for that. I mean, you haven't solved anything. You're not going to collect any more money because somebody else is going to look at it and say, this doesn't work, we're not going to do it. So, thank you.
Other discussion, comments? Counselor Hanson?
Thank you, Honor. I go back to my observation. I really have nothing against serving alcohol. I just think the city at this point is trying to assemble a group of people to look at driving and drinking, or drinking in town, underage and of age drinking in town. And from the statistics, to permit people to drink 4 drinks in that amount of time and then letting them drive home, to me is counterproductive to our attempts to lower drinking and driving problems in this town. And this is what I'm concerned about, not about the permitting, and all this is perfectly fine with me. But the amount of drinking that would be going on there with 4 drinks in that amount of time for an average person, I think you're going to end up being stopped by the police and be over the limit of what's permitted while you drive and drink and drive.
Counselor Gabriel?
To that point, Klaus, the university promotes Uber drivers, other forms of transportation. I know Roxy would probably have more information on that than I do, but they do provide other forms of transportation to encourage people who have had too much to drink to use those services.
Counselor Schuster?
Thank you. You're absolutely correct. They announce it that Uber will be at such and such door or gate. Safe Ride will be at such and such door and gate. And the Laramie taxi service will be at such and such door and gate.
The one taxi.
So it's still something.
Counselor Shumway?
First of all, when this came up last year, I read a study that said that 10% of people that drink at sporting, where alcohol is provided at sporting events, will be intoxicated when they leave the event. There are 18 Uber drivers in Laramie. There's probably 2 taxi companies. And Safe Ride, I don't know what their capacity is, but we're talking about potentially more than 1,000 or 2,000 people that could potentially be leaving the games intoxicated. We may be having the appearance of attempting to do something, but we're not even, the capability is so, the problem is so much larger than what we're doing to solve people driving drunk from the sporting event. I don't know that changing the amount of money that is required for the permit is solves the drinking problem, as Councilor Hanson brought up, but somehow we've got to make sure we do something, which his suggestion was change it to 2 drinks. That's not what we're talking about tonight, but this continues to concern a lot of people in this community, that we cannot just wink at the alcohol problem in sporting events.
Vice Mayor.
So, do I have the math right? So last year we collected roughly $13,000, and this year we're gonna collect $1,300?
3,000.
Between the two.
Between both.
3,000,
But-
no, 1,340, you're right.
1,340 for the arena auditorium.
So last year, 13,000, this year,
So the 13,000 included both, I can tell you specifically, the arena. The basketball arena auditorium, was $10,275.
but our total including War Memorial Stadium and the arena was roughly in the $13,000 range last year. And this year, we're gonna be in the $3,000 range?
Basically.
Right.
Okay.
Counselor Stoner, then
Thanks, Mayor. This is more of a comment than a question. I feel like I'm struggling because I understand that it's onerous for the business owner, perhaps unnecessarily onerous, to go and apply for 4 different things every week. But I also just have concerns about even having the perception of not being open for business to other organizations or companies. That's kind of the philosophical thing that I'm struggling with, so I feel on the fence about this.
Counselor Plicus.
Directly to that, it's my understanding that when this first thing came out, it was offered to everyone, all the license holders, and there was one taker on it. Okay, and I believe I'm correct on that. So, it was there, but if we get into this whole alcohol and how many people are drinking and driving and so forth and so on, that's a discussion that's gonna take a lot. This is not what we should be talking about tonight. I mean, there's so many variables in there. The students on campus, they're not drinking and driving. What's to say people, I mean, there are designated, there's so many. I'm not defending it either way. I'm just saying there's all kinds of arguments. Hey, listen, you don't have, when you go down to a bar downtown, there's many, many bars in town. You don't have a 4 permit in so many hours, and you've got the same issues as you're bringing up. So I'm not defending it either way. I'm just saying we need to focus right where we're focusing now on the licensing. If we deny this, the university would like to serve alcohol at the arena auditorium. They need the way I understand it, they can't do it with their license. They've got to bring another vendor in. And the last time the vendors looked at the cost of doing business, whatever it was, the $10,000, or they all looked at it and said, other than Roxy's, and said, this isn't going to work. We're not even going to apply for it. So that's not to me, that's not a valid argument to deny this, that we can bring in more revenue down the road. We've already decided that at one of our past meetings, that this is available. So, thank you.
City Clerk, I have an additional question for you. If something were to happen and there were points violations against this license, and now it's issued for a year, and it precludes anybody else from being able to go in, and the license is suspended, would that leave the University of Wyoming with no other opportunities, no choice? They couldn't go out and get another vendor because there's still an existing license, even though maybe it got suspended?
I believe if the license was revoked or suspended but totally removed, by council, we took the license away, then it would open that back up. With keeping in mind that I don't know what the contract with the university specifically states.
So if the first tier of point, or maybe it's the second tier of points, it's a 3-day suspension.
After
The University of
100
Wyoming would not
points.
be, they could just have somebody come in and you would be able to issue a permit on top of that permit if it was only suspended for 3 days?
I don't know upon a suspension, but upon the removal of the
Revocation,
license.
they could.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll add a couple of comments here. I agree that the process is onerous. I think that's why we put this in place, to have this option, especially for these particularly two large public gathering spaces that are in Laramie. We don't have anywhere else in the state that has to deal with this. And so I think a yearly permit for the games is absolutely appropriate. It's the same setup, it's the same police, it's the same, basically the same show every time it's a game day. So I think that that is absolutely appropriate. What I am struggling with very much is that the stadium and the arena are used for other things, a lot of other things. And as I read the contract, Ms. Hensley does not have the exclusive contract on alternative third-party activities. That's totally up to the University of Wyoming, but as the contract is written, it only specifically applies to games. So I'm struggling with how we lock out anybody else who might come in and rent the arena auditorium and give a monopoly to somebody when the University of Wyoming hasn't even expressed that they want a monopoly on all of the activities. They've only said on the games. I'm really struggling with that. I don't think we can lock other businesses out of a public space, because the University of Wyoming is a public space. We wouldn't do this for the Laramie Plain Civic Center. I think we'd be hard pressed to find an argument where we would issue a single year-long permit to the Laramie Plain Civic Center and tell them that nobody else could come in there. So I'm really struggling with that particular point. If we could issue it for a year-long permit for just the games, I'm on board. But I really feel like we are setting up a monopoly in public space. So, Counselor Schuster?
I'm wondering why we're talking about this, because this is a contract between the University of Wyoming and Roxy's LLC. And if the University of Wyoming wants to enforce it for games only, they probably can. But we're talking about games only, and anything else should be between the University of Wyoming and her, not us. Because they should have to pull a special event, not us.
Counselor Schuster, to clarify my remarks, my understanding is if we issue this permit, the only person who can serve it will be this company.
But still,
That's
that's the university's choice, not ours.
But the university has not made that choice. I don't see a letter that says that. I don't see a contract that says that. Counselor Gabriel?
Well, I was going to say that I don't believe the university is interested in serving alcohol at other events. I think the Board of Trustees have said that they wanted to issue or have alcohol only exclusively at sporting events. Is that correct? That's what I was under the impression.
That is correct. It's only at sporting events.
They don't want to get involved with all this other activity.
And that's from the trustees. So, and if it makes you feel more comfortable, at the end of the basketball season, I don't have any intention of doing any service at the arena unless specifically asked by the university. So we have a really good working relationship. If there's any issues, we're certainly open to work with them. If they do want to have another vendor, and to answer your question about if my license were to be suspended or something, that's a breach of my contract with the University of Wyoming and myself, not a contract with the city of Laramie. So I would lose that opportunity and lose my license, my permit, not the license.
So I guess I just want to finish the rest of my comments here, and I understand what Ms. Hensley is saying, and I understand the arguments. I think that the University of Wyoming and the trustees should make the public announcement that they don't want to allow other businesses to serve alcohol in even third-party events. I don't think that's the role of the Laramie City Council. I think we are supposed to be open and fair to everybody. That is a public space, and unless the controllers of that public space deem that they don't want to allow anybody in for anything, they've said it for the games, I'd like them to say it for anything. I don't think that that's our role. Anybody else? Councilor Plicas?
First of all, I'm not aware of other things happening in the arena auditorium that has served alcohol in the past. I don't.
There was a concert.
The city clerk, are you
City
aware
clerk.
of anything that's Have
In
they
the
had-
2 years that I've been with the city of Laramie, I don't recall any other permits besides once the university started this alcohol plan, for the arena and the stadium. I don't remember issuing
So,
any previous to that for the arena, auditorium, or the stadium.
Thank you.
Other locations, they've done catering events, but not for those two.
and then second of all, okay, this is, as Counselor Schuster said, he said it perfectly. The contract is between Roxy's and the university, and the way I heard the contract, not reading it, but the way I heard it, it's for athletic events. If something else happens in the arena or auditorium, someone can take out a permit, and tell me if I'm wrong, City Clerk, someone else can take out a permit for that event and pay for each individual space and so forth and so on. Am I incorrect on that?
The
Does Roxy's have
license
an-
that we're issuing is for the licensor. So like the liquor licenses, we issue them May 8th to May 7th of the year. So this covers the arena, auditorium.
So anything that happens in the arena or auditorium, Roxy's would have to,
They have to call her.
then again, I go back to what Counselor Schuster said. That's a contract language between the university and Roxy's, and I'm sure they were aware of that. If they weren't aware of that, they should have been aware of that with their attorneys when they signed it, that they gave them that right. And as far as the exclusiveness of it, I go back to what I said before. Everybody had an opportunity to bid on this, and nobody bid on it, except for Roxy's. So I just don't see where we're struggling with not being open to other businesses. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
So I'll just say it again, we're taking a $10,000 loss on this year. Just saying.
All right, City Clerk. Can you do roll call, please?
Gabriel,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
McKinney,
No.
Kalikas,
Yes,
Shumway,
No.
Schuster,
Yes.
Stoner,
No.
Pierce,
No.
Somerville.
No.
That's 4 yeses and 5 nos, Your Honor.
That motion fails. It is 7:45. Why don't we take a 10-minute break and then we'll come back and get back to the agenda. Yep.
Note that if there is a delay of number 14, there is a game in 2 weeks, which will force Roxy's to pursue a catering permit with a fee associated.
Right.
So Nancy and I talked in the hallway prior to, and if you do delay, we would ask that as a companion motion, that you also consider a fee waiver, because she's going to have a late fee due to the action taken tonight, or lack of action taken tonight, frankly, if she has to pursue a catering permit in order to accommodate that game in 2 weeks. Staff do not have the authority to waive that fee. It's set in code. I think even when it's set in code, it's a little shaky whether council can waive the fee, but certainly you have more legal ability to waive it than we do. So as a matter of courtesy, we'd put that out there for your consideration for the applicant.
Okay.
The 3 city representatives.
Well, before we go back online, should we do, huh?
We're on air right now.
Are we? All right, so before we move on to the next item, have a little discussion from council about postponing this item. We have, so the Lewis Street vacation as well as the Major Street Plan, both of those groups are here, waiting, and I know the Major Street Plan has been expressed to me to be time sensitive.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm wondering if we do postpone number 15, of course, or, sorry, number 14, of course, with the fee waivers, et cetera, to make it practically possible. Would we then be able to bring back item 13, just to make sure they're congruent with whatever we come up with for 14?
Oh, boy, I wish our city attorney was here.
If somebody that voted against it, they could.
Somebody that voted against it could bring it back at the next meeting.
Okay.
Is
During
the way
that.
that's- Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so at the next meeting.
there are enough of those.
I think
Counselor Fleekus?
item number 15 is time sensitive because of the fact that there's a football game in 2 weeks, and if I read this correctly, The licensing term is September 5th to May 7th for the next item on our agenda.
You mean item 14?
14.
I'm sorry, item 14, correct. So I would suggest we adjust the agenda to accommodate Roxy.
So I'm ready to
Perhaps
make a,
Move it
moving
after
Lewis
YDOT.
Street forward.
so I'd like to make a, can I make a motion to move things around or rearrange? Or how would that
sure.
work?
Go ahead.
So I would like to, if it's okay, make a motion to move item 15 and 16 to items after 18. So 15 and 16, if we get that far, within the time that we allow,
Those meetings are already set to begin. We have to
appoint them
Yeah,
tonight?
those are time sensitive.
So everything is
schedule-
time sensitive
That
tonight.
schedule's already set.
Why don't we just postpone
I
until?
want to move to
Counselor Stoner?
do just that. I move to postpone item number 13.
You mean
14?
14,
14.
sorry, everybody. Item number 14 to our next regular meeting on Tuesday, September 18th. And
It's after the.
I'm not sure how to add in the piece about the fee waiver.
And
Authorize,
authorize a fee waiver for the catering permit fee.
and authorize a fee waiver for the catering permit fee for
The
the
late
upcoming-
fee?
Sorry, the late fee.
Late
Late
fee.
fee, yeah.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by the Vice Mayor.
Mayor, if I,
Your Honor, I think the person in question has
Yes.
some concerns.
With all due respect, I've contacted a representative from the University of Wyoming and asked him to come down, and he is on his way down as we speak.
Mayor.
Counselor Stoner?
The main reason I want to move this is to give folks the proper time to get assembled and so our city attorney can be here. I feel like I have missed him being a resource in this conversation. I understand there are other time constraints that exist, but I feel like I would be more comfortable. And that way we could look into amending anything we might need to, so those two things reflect each other.
Okay.
12 and 13.
Counselor Palikas?
13 and 14.
Our member from the university has just shown up. I would suggest we move forward with the agenda as is.
All right. Any other comments from council on the motion to postpone? So
Is there a second to that?
Yeah, there is, from the Vice Mayor. So I will also add that I think I'm very uncomfortable with the contract language stating that it's for games and does not specifying third-party use of the stadium
Then clarify.
and the arena. And I think we need the city attorney to clarify that. So I think that that would be an important thing. I do agree with Phoebe, with Councilor Stoner, that I think we should go ahead and do that, and it would allow us to get a few more questions answered.
And I'll just add that as someone who was on the opposing side of the last vote, I'm interested in potentially next time bringing up something that can help everybody. I feel like I didn't have the opportunity to do that this time.
Right. Are there any comments from the public on a postponement motion? So, Mr. Sparks, right now we have on the floor a motion to postpone the consideration of the special malt beverage permit for the War Memorial Stadium. The motion also includes a late fee waiver so that a catering permit may be obtained for next week's game for alcohol service.
Yeah, my purpose here was, I guess I heard that there were some questions or concerns about contract language, and to what extent I might, if there were questions concerning the contract language, I tried to address those.
Okay. So, any other discussion, are there any other comments from the public on the postponement motion? All right, any other discussion from council on the postponement motion? City Clerk, can you do,
I'm unclear
Councilor
on a
Palikas?
couple things. First of all, can malt beverages can they be served at the next game prior to Or postponement?
Under an alcohol catering permit, Counselor Palikas, they can serve beer and wine.
So I have to pull 6 permits.
Under catering permits. So if I understand the motion correctly, they would have to pull 6 permits, but also within the motion, there's a
4.
late fee waiver. There's
No,
a
basketball,
there's a
football, there's
clause
more.
that the fees would be waived for
Late
those
fee.
amounts.
Yeah,
Correct.
the late fee would
The
be
late
waived.
fee would
The
be
late fee.
waived.
All right, thank you.
Is everybody clear on the motion? All right, City Clerk, can you do roll call on the postponement motion, please?
Palikas,
No.
Schuster,
No.
Stoner,
Yes.
Gabriel,
No.
Hanson,
No.
McKinney,
Yes.
Shumway,
No.
Pierce,
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes,
That's 4 yeses and 5 nos, Your Honor.
that motion fails. So we will move on to item number 14. Counselor Palikas.
Thank you. All right, this is a motion for a new special malt beverage permit for Cowboy State Brewing LLC, location of the permit at the University of Wyoming War Memorial Stadium. I would move that the City Council approve the application for a special malt beverage permit number special 3 to Cowboy State Brewing LLC, DBA Cowboy State Brewing, location of permit at the University of Wyoming War Memorial Stadium, excluding Wildcat and Beer Garden, Laramie, Wyoming, for the licensing term September 5th, 2018 through May 7th, 2019, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
Second by Counselor Gabriel. City Clerk?
Thank you, Council. This permit has been applied for similar to the Arena Auditorium. The application was received on August 8th by Cowboy State Brewing LLC, doing business as Cowboy State Brewing, for the location of the football stadium, excluding the Wildcatter and the beer gardens. The purpose for the exclusion is to allow the service of wine and spirituous drinks still in the Wildcatter and in the beer garden areas. Same information as we had for the previous one. The special malt beverage permit allows the sale and service of beer and malt beverages only in the permitted area.
Are there any questions for the City Clerk on this application? Counselor Hanson?
I just have a procedural question. This is a different company? I thought it was the same company with a different name? I don't understand it because the name Hensley appears again.
City Clerk?
The same LLC cannot hold 2 licenses.
So they formed another one?
Right, this is a separate LLC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the City Clerk?
And as noted, they had that amendment with the contract with the university to include that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions? Counselor McKinney?
On the previous years, how many serving stations were there?
Oh, off the top of my head, I think 7.
We started out with 12.
You'll have to come forward, Mr. Sparks. I apologize.
Sorry. Pardon me. Madam Mayor and Council, we started out with 12. And the lines were very long and so forth. And so we consolidated down to 7, but we basically increased the number of points of sale, and we have a pouring station behind them to be more efficient. So we still have the same number of dispensing units, but we only are selling out of 7 locations instead of 12.
The reason why I asked is because the map that you show here still shows 12 locations.
Yeah, we should have, I can provide you with a new map if that's the case. But
I was just looking for clarification, is that I thought there were 7, They're showing 12, that's why I'd asked, so previously
Seven.
before that was 12.
There was 12, and then we consolidated to serve it a little bit more efficiently, and we consolidated to 7.
Any other questions for the city clerk? All right, thank you. Ms. Hensley, would you like to comment as the applicant first?
Thank you. My name is Roxy Hensley, Again, I am the owner and operator of Roxy's on Grand, and per the direction of this city council as well as the Wyoming Liquor Commission, to be in accordance of the ordinance that you passed last spring regarding malt beverage permits, we were advised to set up an LLC in order to get the malt beverage permits for the football arena at the University of Wyoming. We amended or added an addendum to our contract with the University of Wyoming to reflect this Cowboy State Brewing LLC. That was also advised to us by the Wyoming Liquor Commission that that was the proper mechanism and I guess entity to use according to the ordinance that you passed to submit for this malt beverage permit for the 2018 football season for the University of Wyoming. At the University of Wyoming football games, we employ 80 to 90 people per game in order to serve beer, to monitor wristbands and scanning, and to observe that people are not over drinking. We also tips train all of our employees with the Wyoming Liquor Commission. We probably have about 50 to 60 returning employees, so this is their second season. As well as that tips training, we put them through a regiment training down at the restaurant in downtown Laramie to make sure that they are very aware of people that, to not serve people who are intoxicated, and that we don't overserve them.
Questions for Ms. Hensley? Counselor Hanson?
I asked the question on the other one. How many drinks do you permit per person?
Okay. Our contract with the university and the trustees at the University of Wyoming, they made an educated decision to only allow 4 drinks to be served in about a 4-hour span, and they are about a 14-ounce beer. The alcohol content is less than 6%, and the wine is even less, and the seltzer beverages are probably about a 4.5% of alcohol content.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Hensley? Counselor McKinney?
So you get a wristband,
Yes,
everything's registered,
yes,
you scan it.
yes,
How much does that wristband cost?
nothing. It's free.
So you give free beer,
No,
free wine?
they pay for the beer. Once they come up with that wristband, they have 4 tabs and they,
Okay, so they don't pay for that?
no,
So it all varies depending on what the item is?
yes. And it's $7 for a domestic beer and $8 for a craft beer and $8 for wine. So the wristband is the cost we incur to do this, or the university incurs as a team.
Counselor Lucas?
When do you start serving beer? At the beginning of the game or prior to the beginning?
We set up and start serving about an hour and a half before the game, but our experience is that people don't start coming in until about a half an hour before the game because they're tailgating or they're in the IPF.
Counselor Schuster?
Is there a cutoff time before the game ends?
Yes, the end of the third quarter. So the timeframe, I could estimate, depending on the timeouts and halftime, it's probably about maybe 2.5, 3 hour period to drink 4 beers. And as I said earlier in the other application, our ability to track and do statistics with the scanner, the average amount of drinks that the people that have the bracelets have is 2 drinks per event. And that is statistics, and it's in our machine, and it goes to the University of Wyoming and the Wyoming Liquor Commission. It is very well regulated, because we want this to be successful.
Any other questions for Ms. Hensley? Okay.
Can I ask?
Sure, Counselor Stoner?
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you so much for your time this evening, Ms. Hensley. I was wondering, is it the process of applying for the different permits for each portal that is the most challenging, or is it the actual monetary fee or is it both that kind of create obstacles for you?
Sure, I would say it was both. Applying for each individual permit probably takes my manager a half an hour, and when you're talking about 40 permits, for basketball, I believe it was 40 times 5. That's 200 permits for the basketball season, and then for football, half an hour to an hour, because you have to manually put that in for each location. You're talking, last year it was 12 permits we paid for 12 permits last year. Even though we consolidated, we paid for 12 permits, 10 or 12, I believe, per game, for 7 games. Now, at the end, we only ended up using 6 permits, but we did pay for the entire amount, as well as the cost. And when I was here, when you passed the ordinance on the malt beverage permit last year, allowing individuals or organizations to come in and do the exact same thing that I do at a significant lower cost, I asked you, why am I different? And this was the direction that you gave me to go towards. So I've been working with my accountant, I've been working with my insurance company, and I've been working with the University of Wyoming and the Wyoming Liquor Commission to set this up on your advice.
Counselor Stoner?
I just have one follow-up question. When you fill out an application for each week under the current system, are you physically churning in a different paper application for each location, or is it possible to say we're doing the same basic things in 5 different places or 6 different places?
We have to do each permit for each location. It's on the computer system that the city set up.
Thank you.
Counselor Gabriel?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify once again, now these permits that we talked about in the previous for the AA and now for the stadium are for athletic events only?
In our contract, and I apologize for not bringing it to your attention earlier. I did not bring a copy of the contract, but I believe you have it in front of you. We have a contract with an exclusive contract with the university to supply beer and wine for athletic events and special events, including concerts and other events that they put on. We have that contract, and this contract was put out to the public, and it will be put out in a couple years again. So when we talk about you being cautious about giving us a monopoly on it, the university will be putting out this contract in a couple years, and it will be open to the public again. So it is basically not a monopoly.
Counselor Stoner?
This isn't for Ms. Hensley.
Oh, okay. I have a question for Ms. Hensley then. For my clarification, that's not what it says in the contract I have in front of me. Do we have a copy that can be provided to council that shows the special events and other events?
I can provide that. I do have Mr. Sparks here who can answer that question as well. Thank you.
If, if the, if that contract doesn't specify special events, that was really an oversight. It was in the RFP proposal that we sent out, and you were in the bid process. It did spell out athletic events as well as special events held in these two venues. So if it's not in there, that'll be something we need to adjust with have our legal department adjust that wording. But it was intended to include special events, like concerts. And we've had WWE and some other things in the venue as well. So it would be to cover those kind of events.
So if I can ask a clarifying question on that, because that's a pretty big sticking point for me. So it's the intention of the University of Wyoming that if somebody rents out the arena auditorium for a concert, that they not have a choice in what businesses provide alcohol or beer. They have to use Roxy's if they're going to rent the arena auditorium.
If they, yes, if they rent the facility, that's a condition of the contract between the two of us. We've rarely, if ever, and I've been at the athletic department 20 years, we've rarely had anyone come in and request that they bring their own concessions vendor or alcohol vendor into the venue. They have requested that they bring in merchandising vendors, which we permit, because that's part of a different contract and so forth. But we haven't ever had anyone actually request a separate entity to serve concessions or alcohol.
So, Mr. Sparks, that's the intention of the University of Wyoming, it's pretty important to me to see that in writing so that we can say to the public and the other businesses in Laramie, sorry, the University of Wyoming said no. So how fast could you get that contract changed and back to the council?
I could get it adjusted tomorrow. If our legal office is, and our legal representative, Paula Whaley, is available, we can certainly get that adjusted. It'll just be a matter of a change of wording and initialing the contract. So if Roxy's available, we'll have to get both parties to obviously sign that.
Councilor Hanson?
I can only think of one event that's other than football games in the stadium, for example, the 4th of July fireworks. The people watch it from the stadium, don't they? They don't watch it from the stadium anymore?
No, we actually don't. We actually don't do that in the stadium any longer.
Okay.
And so there's really, obviously, high school football, but we don't serve alcohol at that particular event as an agreement with the Wyoming High School Association.
Yeah.
So that's really the other secondary event that occurs in the stadium.
So can you think of any event other than the football games that this would come a sticking point? I only could think of the watching the fireworks, but that's done. What else is there?
Nothing I can think of in the stadium. We did have a couple years ago, prior to this agreement, we had a concert in the stadium, which was a Kip Moore concert. That was prior to this agreement, and that was sort of a test of how it would work in the stadium. And we basically have decided after doing that in the stadium that concerts are better held in the arena. And so that's where we shifted the concert this year. We do anticipate, or hopefully we'll have that concert on a yearly basis. That's the intention of the university and the student affairs office and so forth, for the students to have access to. But we're pretty comfortable that it fits best in the arena rather than the stadium.
Councilor Kalikas?
I guess I do have a question. Concerning the two directions that we and you can go in for serving alcohol. One is a permitting, and one is back to what the legislature passed, which allows stadiums and arenas to serve alcohol at sporting events.
Correct.
All right. if the council decides that the only way they're gonna go along with this is through the permitting process because the fees are much higher, and this is bid out in the future, and no businesses, no alcohol, or no licenses have a desire to spend that amount of money, what are you gonna do?
That's a very good question. That's, when we went through the initial bid process, and opened it up to businesses to bid on it, we had 3 businesses, that bid on, the choice to do this, the opportunity to do this. And 2 of them just did not meet the qualifications, nor did they feel like that they could obtain the amount of manpower. As Roxy mentioned, we're up in the 80 or 90 person range. That's a lot of manpower to obtain in this size of community. The other 2 vendors, one was not a viable vendor in our mind for a variety of reasons, but the other pretty much put a limitation on how much manpower they could get and provide on a particular game. So it really didn't work. I'm not really sure. Obviously, if we rebid this again and the permit process is the only direction we can go, then obviously that would have to be a cost that would have to be revealed to the potential bidders as to what the cost of this opportunity is actually going to cost them versus how much revenue they can potentially generate. And that would be something they would have to evaluate and choose whether they wanted to participate or not. If not, it's the concern is that and we're certainly not staying here before you saying that everything works perfectly. We have things that we need to fine tune and we need to get better at. But it is something that our fans have now grown accustomed to having the opportunity for. And taking that away and going backwards and saying we can no longer provide it because we can't provide a vendor or find a vendor who will participate would be a difficult position to be in, I think. And we would have to pursue, having sort of exhausted the opportunities for businesses in this town, we'd probably have to look in Cheyenne or some other place and see if there was a business that would be interested and could possibly provide that opportunity. In the bidding process, when we had this before, although they did not submit a bid, Little America expressed an interest and asked a bunch of very detailed questions. But then when it all came to fruition, they chose not to send in a proposal. They obviously, in the future, that could change. But we would have to go outside the city, is my guess, because as we mentioned earlier, Altitude already has the Wildcatter, and they're pretty content with the amount of work they're doing there and the amount of manpower they have to get for that function every football game. And so I don't think they want to take this on, and they chose not to last time when we bid. And there's not a lot of other businesses, restaurants, bars in town that probably could step up and provide this kind of manpower and service. At least that's been our experience. I hope that answers your question.
It does.
Any other questions for Mr. Sparks while he's here? I do have one for you in relation to the permit fees and the cost being a deterrent. So there is a May 2018 article that talked about the first year of sales. Obviously, this is a big experiment, right? First year out. And so the article said that the University of Wyoming walked away with $104,000 after $82,000 in startup costs. So we had $104,000 of pure profit, and you guys were projecting about $210,000 or so.
Correct.
In that, that's what was in the article. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, we still have We still have ongoing costs, obviously. But our startup cost in the first year was around $85,000. Actually, it was more than that, but we paid for the dispensing units, which was $120,000 out of the previous year's budget. So it was paid over a 2-year period of time. So in reality, our startup costs were almost $200,000. We just spread it over a couple of years in our budget. But we did make profit, but we were projecting. I mean, that was one of the purposes of doing this. We were asked by our Board of Trustees and our President to pursue avenues where we could generate new revenue that we weren't already being able to create. This was one of those avenues that we looked at to see if we could do that. And so obviously there, as much as we're also interested in providing good customer service to our fans, we do have an objective of generating additional revenue and a new revenue stream.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for Mr. Sparks? Any other questions for Ms. Hensley? We kind of cut you off there with some questions, so are there any other questions for her? Okay, thank you. Are there any comments from the public on this item? Okay, seeing none, discussion or comments from council? Vice Mayor.
So I'll just reiterate what I said previously. I'm not going to change my vote. I'm still going to vote no on this. And it has absolutely nothing to do with contract language or anything like that. But it appears that the city collected roughly $13,000 in fees last year. And we are poised to collect roughly $3,000 this year. We've got, just heard from Mr. Sparks that the university over 2 years now has roughly broke even, you know, based on whatever budget you're looking at. And I'm assuming Ms. Hensley's operation has profited something. I don't know what, but I'm assuming they've profited something. And I think given the fact that, you know, we're taking a $10,000 loss by comparing last year to this year, I don't think it's appropriate. And I think perhaps we could meet someplace in the middle, somewhere down the road. I don't know, but I don't think anybody here is in a position to say, yay, city, let's go in the hole $10,000 this year. I mean, I just don't think that's a good idea. We have a hard enough time making budget decisions and making our ends meet, and I'm not going to go there, so.
Other comments or discussion? Councilor Stoner.
This is actually a question for the city clerk. Thank you. Can you break down the process on your end for the user applying for these permits as far as electronically? It sounds like you have to submit one for each. How much flexibility do we have on that on our end?
So this last season, this last year, 2017 to 18, the process that we went through with Dean, one of Roxy's employees, is that he put in a permit for each location for each date that they were going to have a football game, you know, since we're talking about the stadium. So the permit covered each of the dates, but for that one location. So so that 7 locations, he put in 7 permits.
Okay.
For the arena auditorium, same thing, 1 permit for all of the dates,
I get it.
you know.
Okay.
Unless there was one that came up, like at the end of the season, when there's additional games in the arena auditorium, those were additional on top, because they didn't know the dates when they initially did that, so.
Other discussion? City Clerk, did you want to add something? Okay.
I was just gonna say, the fee is then just multiplied by how many dates we're, permitting.
Councilor Bleekus?
I'll try to be short. Just a couple of things. First of all, on that last vote, which relates to this vote, because it sounds like it's to be the same type of thing. What I'm hearing some counselors say, the argument is, we're not going to allow this permit to pass, or excuse me, we're not going to allow this license to pass because we have another license that we can collect more money on for the same operation, just a different process. I think there's two parts to that. First of all, I think that's ethically wrong to take a perfectly good application that's perfectly legal, that's been approved by the License Commission, and say, no, we're not going to pass that, because if we pass this other permit, we can make another $10,000. I don't think that's right. And the second part to it is, of that same argument, is that's well, that's kind of like, that's all well and fine. You're going to make money now for the process, but what's going to happen 2 years from now when this contract is up? And this is what I asked Mr. Sparks, and you're going to open it up for the public. And the last time we opened it up, we had basically nobody applying for it because whatever reason, but I'm guessing one of them was they felt that the cost of the permitting and the cost of doing business was higher than what the profit would be. So we're going to, I mean, it's pretty short-sighted when you're saying, well, we got to make $10,000 this year, but next year we're going to be in a world of hurt. So first of all, we're turning down stuff that's perfectly legal and perfectly right and second of all, we're short-sighted to the point where we want to make money this year, but we're probably not going to make it in the following year because it doesn't make economic sense. And the last thing I'm going to say is I resent when we as a body or people within this body make a judgment on how much money either the university or a corporation or individuals should make as part of their business. It's none of my business. And frankly, everybody, myself included, and a few people on council, and I'm sure people in the audience, our objective is to make money. That's what it's all about. So I don't like that when we start making, well, you're making enough money, so we're going to do this to you. That's not right, in my opinion, and that's not the way I think. Thank you.
Any other comments? So, Councilor Hanson?
Thank you. I guess I'm going to vote for it, but my concern is still the one about drinking and driving. I'm sorry, I can't get over that. 4 drinks is too much at that situation. And I hear Ms. Hensley saying most people only drink 2 because of the price, but the permit is 4, and I know there's a way, of course, to circumvent even 4 by letting your wife or your brother go and who drinks less and get another one for you. But basically, I'm concerned about that. And if we are going to have accidents, serious accidents after the games because of that, we're going to hear about it. And so I'll be off council. I don't have to worry about it then. But that's a concern, I think, that is serious. And I come back to the idea that we have been asked by the students, we are forming a group that is dealing with this issue, and here we are permitting something that goes in the other direction. So I'm a little conflicted on that, from that perspective. I grew up differently. I have basically no objection to people serving alcohol wherever, whatever. That doesn't bother me. It's just drinking and driving is a problem, and I don't know how to solve that issue in this particular case. Thank you.
And I believe I was remiss in not asking for public comment before we went to council comments, so I'm going to do that now if council doesn't mind. So are there any comments from the public? I'll let, okay, Roxy, Ms. Hensley, and then Mr. Sparks, and then we'll close off comment from the floor.
I'm a little miffed about the statement about the price of the permit. It was your ordinance, and it was your fee setting. It was $4,000 for football and $2,000 for the arena auditorium. I'm not asking you to change that. That was the decision that you made, and that was the cost that you came up with for that permit.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank you. Mr. Sparks?
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to Councilman Hanson's concern. And we certainly are equally concerned about someone drinking and driving. And we've tried to put procedures in place. We have Safe Ride, which we pay out of our budget, that is at every game that is available to fans, both students and others, to transport them home. We have a corporate contract with Uber. We have a location at Gate 4 for Uber to pick up and take people home. We also have a place for taxis to also be located in the stadium lot after the game to transport people home as they wish as well. So does that change anything? Hopefully it does. Hopefully it provides some other opportunities for people to choose rather than getting behind the wheel and driving. They do have options. We also talk a lot about, our whole theme on our wristbands and on our signs about drink responsibly. That's been a theme since the beginning of this process. And so we are concerned about that as well. We, the student group that you probably are speaking of, yes, the AWARE group, we reviewed this plan with the AWARE group before it went to the trustees. They didn't actually support it, but they did not oppose it, and sent a resolution to the trustees not opposing the plan. And I meet with them several times a year, probably every 2 months, and give them an update on where we are and how things are working. When we have statistics from our police chief and so forth, and we report those to the AWARE group and also to the Student Health and Wellness Committee on campus as well. So we're not taking drinking and driving lightly at all. And we've tried to build plans into our aspects into our plan to try to prevent that. Matter of fact, right before I came down here, I have an email from Chief Samp, our police chief, about doing a PSA, filming a PSA with the Highway Patrol inside our stadium that will be shown during the Boise State game, talking specifically about that, and that is in conjunction with the Governor's Council on Drunk Driving. So,
thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilor Shibley?
Well, again, the comment that was made about, Uber, Safe Ride, and taxis, there may be 20 or 30 rides, but we have maybe 2,000 people leaving intoxicated, and all I want to say is there's just not enough lifeboats on the Titanic. We've got to do something that works instead of just some token gesture to say that we're doing something about it. I wouldn't be convinced if someone said 2,000 people are leaving and we've got rides for 25 to 30 of them.
So I'll add a couple of comments here before we wrap this up. So a couple of things that I've heard specific to this item, a lot more talk about the process with the application. I want to defend our city clerk's office a little bit and say that the process has improved significantly from the paper application that we used to have, 3 years ago, I think we went electronic with the applications. So I do think that it has improved and it's much more user-friendly. You can do it from your house. I mean, so I want to defend the clerk's office a little bit on that. I don't think that should be part of the considerations or the discussions. I understand it's an onerous process and we want to make it better. But at some point in time, we all have to sit back and say, we're the city council, we're enforcing state statute. The state legislature writes these rules for most of this stuff, not us. So we have to enforce catering permits and licenses and all that good stuff. We're enforcing what the state wrote. So I think that's important to keep in mind. just to briefly reiterate, you're gonna get the same vote from me on this license as the last one. Specifically, I have a huge problem with the contract language. It does not specify that the University of Wyoming intended to provide exclusivity to anything other than athletic events. It says specifically University of Wyoming games. It does not say special events. It does not say outside rentals. It does not say anything. That is a public space. So it is not this, I don't believe it's the city council's role to give the message to the businesses that nobody else is allowed. Nobody else can serve alcohol in there. If somebody rents it from a concert, nobody else can walk in City Hall and get a catering permit to serve alcohol at a concert for a private rental. If that's the intention of the University of Wyoming, then that needs to come clear from the trustees, that that is their intention. And then we will work forward from there. So with that being said, Mr. Sparks, as I asked the question before, if there's a contract language change where the university says clear and out loud, we are not going to play ball with anybody else. This is our choice for the next 2 years, no matter what's going on at the stadium or the football stadium, I guess is what we're talking about now, then bring it to me and maybe I will reconsider my vote. But right now, I don't think that's the position we need to be in. If we give this permit, we're going to lock everybody else out, no matter what. So if something happens and the license gets suspended for 3 days, nobody else can walk into City Hall and pull a liquor license to serve beer at a basketball game or a special event. Everything will do or die on that one permit that's issued. And I wish we could, if we had an option to give a year-long permit for just the games, you'd have my full support, because I think the administrative task making it easy for those unique situations in our town is important. Is there anybody else that wants to speak before we vote? All right, City Clerk? City Manager, did you have something to add?
Mayor and Council, I just wanted to note that I did review the code revision that you made in May, I think concluding with the third reading in early June. And it is accurate that the changes that you made are consistent with what's on the table tonight.
City Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
There was a comment back there.
We've already closed public comment.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Apologize.
Sorry, Mayor.
City Clerk?
Gabriel,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
McKinney,
No.
Yes.
Bleekus, Shumway,
No.
Schuster,
Yes?
Stoner,
No. No.
Pierce,
No.
Somerville.
No.
That's 4 yeses and 5 noes, Your Honor.
Thank you. That motion
Heard
fails.
that before.
City Manager?
Council, might I suggest your consideration of a catering fee late submission fee waiver?
With a football
Since
game.
Roxy's will need now to pull a catering permit and it's beyond the application date, and we'll have to pay a fee for late submission for the
Is-
next football game.
Is that the 9:15 game?
I don't know.
I don't have a schedule in front of me. The 9:15 game? Okay. I would be happy to entertain a motion
So moved.
to waive the late fee for the
Second.
9:15 game. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Are there any public comments on that motion? We'll remove the late fee for the catering permit application for the football game on 9/15/2018. No public comment. Council, Vice Mayor?
So,
Oh, whoa. That was part of a motion
That failed.
that failed.
Not the
So
late fee.
we've not had a motion.
Yeah,
City Manager?
Mayor, you are correct. The clerk can confirm procedurally. It was tagged onto your postponement
Right.
motion, but the postponement motion failed.
I
I
think
felt
doing
that
it
the
separately would be.
point of it was tied to the postponement, and so I'm asking that you might consider it as a standalone motion.
Right.
My ruling would be it's
Right.
different enough because it does not include a postponement that we can consider.
For
it.
both venues.
Well, it,
No, for just the
Just the
stadium.
stadium.
Yeah, just for the stadium, for the 9:15.
Right,
is
one
my
game.
understanding of the motion, is that correct?
Yes.
As it stands.
Vice Mayor?
so, previous conversation talked about statutorily that we may or may not have the ability to do that. Do we need to add into our motion that
it's not on the agenda.
upon approval of review of state statute? Or no?
I
Or you
think-
just kind of go with it and then,
Yeah, no, I think it's no harm to, if you want to say pending legal review.
Okay.
I was going to say that
No harm. City Clerk?
the late fee, Mayor, is an adopted Laramie Municipal Code.
So not state
Outside of
statute.
state statute.
Thank you.
State
Okay.
statute refers to the fee for the alcohol catering permit,
Okay.
but
Thank
not
you.
the late fee.
Can I do a point of order here?
Counselor Pelegas?
If that, I'm not, if that should have been an amendment to the motion we just passed or failed,
Just failed.
not, we're bringing something on the table that's not on the agenda. It's just coming out of the air, if you will.
Counselor Pelegas, I believe it's appropriate because it is related to the item that was just
Right.
on the table. We have done this before.
Mayor and council, I would say I'm just trying to offer I'm trying to offer something that will assist in bringing tens of thousands of fans to War Memorial on 9/15, and they can buy their beer. And as far as whether it's procedurally appropriate, I'm not offering it in
No, and I
that
understand
vein.
that.
So I'll leave it to you to determine that. But I'm just offering it because I didn't know if this motion was going to fail, so I didn't suggest you make it as an amendment.
Right.
And so I really couldn't make the suggestion until I knew if you approved or denied the War Memorial permit. So it may not be procedurally completely perfect, but I don't care how we do it. I just think it's something that we
No, I
should consider
agree
because
with that.
staff can't make that decision absent your
It's the
direction.
result of the failure.
Okay. Is there any other comments from council on the motion that's on the floor to waive the late fee for the 9/15/2018 football game? Okay, City Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Shumway,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Stoner,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Pelikas,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. All right, let's move to item number 15. Counselor Schuster.
Thank you. Title of the resolution is 2018-59 to appoint 3 members of the city council, 1 from each ward, to an ad hoc committee, alcohol consumption and best practice review committee. I move to approve resolution 2018-59 to appoint Councilman Klaus Hansen, Councilman Joe Shumway, and Councilman Pat Gabriel to the ad hoc committee, alcohol consumption and best practice review committee as the 3 members of the city council, 1 from each ward, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Counselor Schuster,
That's
can you
two
repeat
from Ward
the,
3.
yeah, we have to have 1 from each ward.
Did I get one of the names wrong? Yes, I
I
did.
can't-
Because Pat and Klaus are from the same ward.
Right.
Who did I mess
I'm
up?
sorry,
It's
I
supposed to be
gave you the
mine.
wrong.
He gave me the
Oh, you
names.
get it. We're all good.
Andy's over.
So,
Like,
Who's the third
Andy?
one?
Andy
yeah, I'm
Somerville.
the third.
Okay.
Oh, you're the third
Yeah,
one.
so it's
so
just
I'm
us.
gonna remove Pat Gabriel from my motion and put on Councilman Andy Somerville.
Perfect.
And I'm sorry because.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussed
Second by
it.
Counselor Stoner.
Replacing me. I'm
All
sorry.
right, so this is the ad hoc committee that we discussed at the previous meeting. I don't know if there's anything else that needs to be said about that, City Clerk. Is there anything else you wanted to add to this?
I have nothing. In the resolution, it just said we were appointing 3 members, 1 from each ward.
Counselor Hanson?
And I apologize giving the wrong name because we had discussed what happens after I leave this,
Gotcha.
established this auspicious body or whatever, and somebody would have to be replacing me. And so that's why Pat Gabriel's name came up, and I'm sorry, I got the 2 messed up.
All good. All right, any other questions on this? Is there any public comment on this item? Is there any council discussion or comment on this item? City Clerk? Roll call,
McKinney,
please.
Yes.
Pelikas,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Shumway,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Stoner,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes,
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
thank you, that motion carries. Item number 16, Counselor Shumway.
Thank you, Your Honor. The title of this resolution is to appoint 3 liquor license holders appointed by the governing body to the Ad hoc Committee Alcohol Consumption and Best Practices Review Committee. So I move to approve resolution number 2018-60 to appoint Gregory Grisham, Pedro O'Dwyer, and William G. Hensley to the Ad hoc Committee Alcohol Consumption and Best Practice Review Committee to represent the 3 liquor license holders appointed by the governing body and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Got lots of seconds. Counselor
Well,
Hanson wins.
I
Okay.
was the other one doing it.
All right, so as stated, this is the resolution appointing the 3 liquor license holders. Are there any questions from council on this?
Can you tell us which liquor license businesses they represent? I think I've picked up 2
Absolutely.
of them, yeah.
City Clerk, please.
Gregory Grisham represents Wyoming Chop House and Brewery, or Wyoming Rib and Chop House, excuse me.
Okay, thank you.
William G. Hensley represents Roxy's on Grand. And what was the third?
Deirdre O'Dwyer.
Oh, Deirdre, yeah, is O'Dwyer's.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, is there any public comment on this item? All right, any comments from council on this item? City Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Shumway.
Yes.
Stoner.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes.
Polikis.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Pierce.
No.
Somerville.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses and 1 no, Your Honor.
Thank you, that motion carries. All right, item number 17, Counselor Stoner.
Thanks, Mayor. I move to approve original ordinance number 1987 on second reading, vacating a portion of Lewis Street, 10th Street, and the alley within and adjacent to Block 129, Union Pacific Railroad Company, second edition, as recommended by the Planning Commission, based on findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Gabriel. Mr. Bloom.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, I have nothing further to add on this. There's no comments at the public hearing and first reading. We discussed the MOU in detail. So I'm open for any questions. The applicant is here for any questions as well.
Questions? All right, seeing none. Does the applicant wish to add anything to the conversation this evening? Perfect. Mr. Farstead gives a thumbs up. All right. Any comments from the public? We're fast running out of public. All right. Any comments or discussion from council?
Love seeing sand.
Mr. Farstead, keep coming back. All right, so City Clerk, can you do a roll call, please?
Gabriel.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
McKinney.
No.
Polikis.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Stoner.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses and 1 no, Your Honor.
Thank you, that motion carries. And that will go on the consent agenda in 2 weeks for the final third reading. All right, item number 18, Counselor Polikis.
Yes, this is a motion for consideration of a resolution to certify the Urban Systems Advisory Committee, known as USAC, Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission to amend the major street plan of the 2007 Laramie Comprehensive Plan. I move to approve City Council Resolution 2018-19 certifying Planning Commission action to amend the major street plan, map 8.1 of the 2007 Laramie Comprehensive Plan based on findings of facts and conclusions of law, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the resolution.
Second.
Second by Counselor Schuster. Counselor Hanson?
Your Honor, not the whole resolution was read, because it continues to say, if this motion is approved,
That's okay.
da-di-da-di-da-di-da.
Right.
That's okay, that doesn't have to be in the motion to put it on the floor.
Oh, okay.
I think that's just for our information. We can share that with the public.
Well, which version are we approving then?
So the recommended staff motion is to approve the amendments to the major street plan, which would adjust the alignment of Bill Nye to Palmer Street, basically at Third Street, right? Mr. Bloom, explain to us in detail, please.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, everything that's in the bottom half of that box, following the two dashes, that's just to give you guys some feedback and some education on what the possible outcomes could be. The motion on the table right now is to pass a resolution that follows the Planning Commission recommendation to relocate the future Bill Nye Avenue corridor from its present location at Sanders Street to a new alignment 1 block south at Palmer Street. Also, it would reclassify 4th Street south of Russell to 3rd Street as a local street, so it would effectively remove it from the plan. So if you approve this resolution, the plan will just have the Palmer Street connection at that location. If you choose to deny the resolution, to not certify action, essentially what would happen is the plan would remain as is, which would keep Bill Nye Avenue at Sanders Street and keep 4th Street on the major street plan as a minor arterial street. So that's how we explain the motion. So we had a work session, actually we had an open house on August 22nd in this room right here. We had about 25 people that showed up at this work session. It was right before one of your council meetings, so I believe some of you all also showed up as well. Of these 25 people, we had about 6 people that provided comments. We have included the comments that have come as written comments from that meeting in the council correspondence. I also believe that there was a public comment that was emailed to the council from a landowner over there. Generally, the opinion we heard from the public was they were all in support of the Palmer Street option. Discussed at that meeting were the multiple options that have been out there for many years, actually. One was the no option, which had an idea of just take it all off the plan, utilize 15th Russell Street, 9th Russell Street. That was an option. We had at least 2 members of the public that expressed an interest in that alignment. No one stood up and said they liked the Sanders Street alignment. Neighborhood residents, they did not like that. They didn't want the potential for increased traffic in their neighborhood. Several members of the public indicated they had concern with the roundabout at Boswell Drive. The reason they had concern was because it would be confusing. They didn't know if people would be able to understand how to use it. And also it would result in a lot of property acquisition. The business owner adjacent to that roundabout was extremely concerned because it not only affects his land, his pumps, his store, but it also would affect how fueling trucks would enter and leave his site. It seemed like overwhelmingly the public's opinion and preferred Bill Nye Avenue alignment at this area was at Palmer Drive. Also at that open house, there was a discussion on closure of Boswell Drive. What would the public like to see? Again, we've attached those comment cards. You've seen an email from a neighbor. We really didn't have a very clear answer. One business owner, he had indicated that he would like to see it cut off at his historical terminus, which is prior to the Boswell Street connection, so a cul-de-sac over by Corona Village, so only the businesses in the area would have access, therefore bringing traffic levels back down to historic levels. There are some other comments that are included in your correspondence here that talk about people still being concerned that a roundabout would be confusing if that was put there, if a pork chop was put in, which is just a right turn, left turn restriction, so you wouldn't have cross traffic, that could be confusing to some of the members. So there were some concerns regarding that. During this meeting, we did not identify any timeframes for any of these improvements because those are all flexible. We do not know when the funding would be available for this Bill Nye Avenue extension. Now regarding the Boswell Drive closure item, which is separate from this major street plan amendment, that is an item that if the city council wishes to have staff move forward, that would have to be a council directive to our staff to take it to our traffic commission for further study. The traffic commission would then make a decision. Then ultimately they would bring it to council for your approval. Alternatively, we could ask that the DOT, who is the requesting agency, that they make an application and they request that the Traffic Commission consider that item. So what happens after this resolution? If it's approved, there are still 2 more steps in the process. Since this is the major street plan, which is a joint document between the city and the county, we will next have to take this to the County Planning and Zoning Commission, and we will also have to take it to the Board of County Commissioners for their approval. Last May, we took the first half of this to them. It was a very smooth process, and it was approved. So I believe they are aware that this one segment is still lingering, and they would be taking the final action on this. I'm open for any questions you may have. Staff's recommendation remains the same, which is to approve the resolution as presented, which effectively modifies a major street plan to put that Bill Nye Avenue connection at Palmer, and it downgrades 4th Street south of Russell to a local street.
Questions for Mr. Bloom? Counselor Hanson?
Thank you. Just a question, with the Palmer Street alignment, then there would be a traffic light, sort of a three section, right? Or a 3-street segment. There would be a traffic light to allow the traffic from Bill Nye enter not Grand Avenue, what is it? Third Street. And vice versa, there would have to be some kind of a left turn signal to enter from 3rd Street into that street while the opposing traffic is stopped on 3rd Street. Is that the idea behind this? I find it a little complicated, quite frankly. The roundabout for me was much simpler than that. But if we are to construct this, there was question about the necessity, the use, at this point in time, whether the traffic from the high school wouldn't turn long before that to go someplace else. And I don't think this particular solution solves traffic patterns in any way, shape, or form, no more than the roundabout. The roundabout issue, of course, was not enough land, and it has to be a certain size and whatnot. I don't think this one is any better, so that's my observation on it. Thank you.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, if I could answer the question. Klaus asked if there would be a traffic signal at this location. When YDOT would move forward with design, they would install appropriate traffic control mechanism at that intersection.
Yeah.
It may be a stop sign initially. It could be a signal, could be a roundabout.
Yeah.
But it would require further study, traffic impact analysis, traffic studies to see what mechanism would work best there and what would fit within existing rights of way and what wouldn't impede neighboring development. So there will be some type of traffic control at that intersection. It's not defined now, and nor does the major street plan make that definition of what type of traffic control is there, but it would be installed based on traffic and signal warrants.
Counselor McKinney? I have a question. Could you talk a little bit, one of the things the cover sheet talked about was the impending massive development planned in this area. And could you talk a little bit about how each one of these options will affect, so what development is impending? How are these options going to affect that?
Honorable Mayor and City Council, we have a conceptual development. Nothing has been filed yet. And that conceptual development is proposing the creation of either 3 or 5 lots. They're kind of jumping in between. And is basically located south of Sanders Street and north of the Spring Creek Channel. We've had numerous developers come in the past looking at developing this land. And presently, right now, it is platted with lots and blocks and a road. If you take the land that is presently occupied by the old pet store, the scrapbooking store, the saddle shop, that area to be redeveloped right now, if someone were to pull a building permit, demo it, and start over, they would be required to build the minor arterial Sanders Street on the north, and then a minor arterial 4th Street on the west, on the east, and also on the south connecting to 3rd. So they would essentially have the bill of 3 minor arterials in a triangle around the property and have to dedicate additional right-of-way. So that's been a huge obstacle in redevelopment of that area for anybody. The proposed conceptual plan is basically hedging itself on the Palmer Street option being selected. What that proposes is to dedicate the right-of-way for Palmer Street, creating the east-west corridor between the Channel and 3rd Street, and then essentially creating lots that would be between the neighborhood and future Bill Nye Avenue. So it would prevent vehicular traffic from cutting through that area in the future, trying to utilize the neighborhood to cut north from Bill Nye Avenue, either on 4th Street, 5th Street, Spring Creek Drive, to try to get to Russell or other parts of town. So essentially, the conceptual plan we have here, they've been waiting for a decision on this for a little while now, and they would like to see it happen so they can move forward with some development plans on the south part of town. To date, we don't have any uses that are identified for that area, so it's just a conceptual plan, lot lines in a B2 zoning district.
So as a follow-up question, so if we do the East Palmer Drive that's recommended, then it would, so that road would go across private land right now, and we have that landowner's permission?
Honorable Mayor and City Council, yes, the landowner has commented that they are in favor of this, option.
Councilor McKinney, and then Gabriel.
If we put that in on Palmer, are we gonna put any utilities in the street?
Honorable Mayor and City Council, in early discussions with the developer's agent for that area, they will be working with the city to relocate some of the existing utilities in the area, and they would utilize this area as a utility corridor.
Councilor Gabriel.
One of the residents we got an extensive email from considered the idea of moving traffic over to 3rd Street, and his opinion, there wasn't a lot going on there, and it would be a waste of resources. Maybe go to 15th Street and move the traffic into the more residential areas from the high school that way. And I was just curious what your thoughts were on that.
Honorable Mayor and Councilor Gabriel, yeah, we did receive that comment. That comment was provided prior to the open house. Essentially, that was one of our folks who wanted the do-nothing option, which is instead of building this corridor, let's go ahead and utilize the existing infrastructure. When we did the Bill Nye Avenue West corridor study, we worked with a traffic engineer who basically assigned estimated trip numbers and trip generation based on the future build-out of residential and commercial at that area. In the future, when we do have new single-family homes that are located north of Interstate 80, south of the existing part of town, coupled with commercial pockets that will pop up like near 30th and Bill Nye Avenue, you will have traffic levels that would justify this roadway. If this roadway weren't put in place, you would likely have some extreme congestion at some of those intersections like 15th and Spring Creek, 9th and Russell. You would also have to do some infrastructure improvements to either widen bridges, acquire additional right-of-way to put in some lanes and stuff like that, where it presently crosses over Spring Creek right now. So looking at the Bill Nye Avenue West corridor study and the projections made with that traffic model, we do believe that this connection is appropriate and is necessary to ensure adequate spacing of our minor arterials throughout our community.
Other questions? Councilor Hanson?
One more question concerning development at all south of the interstate on Third Street? Because it's always been said that there isn't much housing, there isn't much population for this extension. To my mind, if we are to build this, is there the conceivable possibility that the town would develop south of the interstate along the area of the extension of Third Street, you know, whatever there is on the other side? There seem to be houses there, there seems to be development there, but it is, at this point, sparse. And what is the prediction for the future? To me, that seems to be an area that could possibly develop, and then this kind of a through street from the high school, you know, becomes much more used and viable as something for people to go into that area. But I haven't heard anything to that effect. As a matter of fact, it seems, you know, coming back to what we have heard before, that at this point, the extension of this street, Bill Nye, altogether to Third Street, seems sort of a little superfluous. But what would the future bring, you know?
Yeah.
If the South were to develop in that area, then it would be quite important. Then I'm coming back to my idea of the roundabout a little further south than Palmer Street. But at this point, I think we have kind of shut our eyes to that kind of a development and simply said, well, we're going to permit building it, which will happen in maybe 20, 30 years. And we presume that the traffic would basically hit Third Street and go north, which I think seems probably a little nearsighted at this point. Or not farsighted enough. So I don't know.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, whenever a community invests in infrastructure projects, specifically major roadways and corridors like that, especially if it's utilizing taxpayer dollars or different federal grants or grants from the feds, you usually will see a return on investment in the area. So by constructing any portion of this roadway and the remainder of Bill Nye Avenue all the way out to Boulder Drive, it will definitely perk up the eyes of private property owners nearby to say, hey, we have an opportunity now. This is a burden that's been taken off of our shoulders. Regarding the lands on the south side of I-80, there are several large land owners over there. Some of them have been developers in the past. Some of them may have been retired developers. I hate to say it, where they may have just said, I'm kind of out of the development business. And they're looking for other people to move forward with those development plans. But we frequently see in our office a lot of interested parties that want to continue to do some southern expansion into town. With the recent water line projects in the area, it has opened up the door for new development in that area. But right now, it's still a work in progress. I think investment in the south side of the community for infrastructure will have a domino effect. It's not going to happen overnight. Again, this type of plan is looking 20 years into the future. So we're just trying to make sure we have the infrastructure in place for what might happen in 20 years.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Anna.
Other questions? I just have one more. I think it's just to remind me of the conversation. So as it sits, the motion right now, this will not change anything to Boswell Street. This is only, there won't be a cul-de-sac or anything like that. That's not part of any of this motion tonight, although it certainly has been part of the discussion.
Honorable Mayor, that is correct.
Okay. So my question is related to then the previous conversation we had a couple of months ago regarding if we put the light in at Palmer, what options does that leave us in dealing with the traffic congestion / mess with Boswell and the on off ramps at I-80 and that just general disaster that's going on down there. What, does it take anything off the table? So if a council 5 years from now decided a roundabout was the way to go, are we good, or does the light preclude that, or what does it do? Remind me, please.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, I would probably best be able to hand that one off to Tom Dehoff, our district engineer, because that would be his traffic control at Boswell Street. I would envision that discussion would be, or that problem would be remedied once Palmer Drive is in, because I believe once Palmer Drive is constructed, there would be a very strong argument as to why would you keep full access Boswell Street there if it happens to survive until such time that Palmer Drive connection is constructed. But Mr. Dehoff would be able to probably answer that better than I would.
Fair enough, okay. Any other questions for Mr. Bloom? All right. Mr. Dehoff,
This is the plan.
floor is
right?
yours, sir.
They say a traffic light there. Yeah, they say traffic.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. We just wanted to come and tell you that we agree with the recommendation with the City of Laramie to bring Bill Nye in at Palmer. We did make our presentation on June 25th to you to try and give you as much information from the transportation officials on the efficiency of the operation there, and also safety's in that also. So nothing's changed from that. We also look forward to continue the conversations with Janine and her staff on what to do there at Boswell, with the concern that we continue to hear from the public. I am getting phone calls, and you do hear the social media out there, because we do have our Facebook and Twitter, so they are picking up when we start talking about things in the city of Laramie. Other people throw in things about, they talk about the I-80 on and off ramps there at 3rd Street, which we did bring up at the June 25th, which we have concerns. What that traffic control looks like at both locations, that has not been determined. Did we present some to the public on the Boswell connection? Yes, we did. We worked with Janine's staff again to come up with some ideas on what it would look like if that stayed connected. But we also showed, to bring it back to historical or, close it off. We had Randy Griesbaugh and our state traffic personnel there at the public meeting. I was not able to attend that. Now, we only received the 4 written comments that Derek and Charles provided us. But I did ask Randy the next day, how did it go? What feedback did you get? Because we all had concerns about disconnecting Boswell. It wasn't so much of moving Boswell up to Palmer, it was the disconnection of Boswell. Randy's feelings were, and this is his interpretation, remember, just what he heard verbally is, okay, they didn't like it, but they understood why it would need to take place because of the complications that we tried to describe to you on the June 25th meeting. And talking with Janine and Charles, I don't know if they came to that same conclusion, but we didn't get very many written comments that I think you were looking for. You almost had to be in attendance to kind of come up with your own interpretation. But I can still tell you that we do have concerns at that intersection. But we do support tonight's recommendation.
Any questions for Mr. Dehoff?
May I just offer our apologies for waiting so long, almost 3 hours before you were up here to comment. And I had no idea, with this discussion, but maybe next time we can move up this discussion a little bit earlier so you don't have to wait so long.
Thank you.
I feel bad
Thank you.
that people have to wait so long to comment on things.
Thanks.
So, my only question to you is the same one I had for Mr. Bloom. If we approve this at Palmer, does it take any traffic control options off the table at the I-80 interchange and Boswell? Could you still put a roundabout there? Could you still do signalization? Could you, obviously we could shut off Boswell, but, or is there anything that gets taken off the table that you guys wouldn't be able to live with?
So now moving the minor arterial to come in at Palmer, I wouldn't say that it would take it off the table, but I don't know if a roundabout would be an option there at Boswell. So I would say, I think they would all still be on the table. But I just don't think, with the proximity of what mitigation you're gonna do at Palmer, because now you're moving the arterial up there, it's too close. Remember, we talked about that on the June 25th, how close, because we think we might have to put a traffic signal down on the south side of the interstate where the on and off ramps are right now. And when you have that traffic signal that close to the roundabout, and I don't know what's gonna happen at Palmer, if it's gonna be a roundabout, or it could be a traffic signal, or it just requires a stop sign, which it probably won't. It'll probably require a traffic signal. But, yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Dehoff? Thank you. City manager?
Oh,
Did you have one?
I didn't. Was I making?
Sorry, you had the look.
Just, I was talking to myself.
No, all right. Is there any public comment on this item tonight? Right. Comment or discussion from council on this item tonight?
I'm resisting.
Fair enough.
It's too late.
Councilor Hanson?
I'm sort of between the devil and the deep blue sea. It says here, traffic light, no roundabout. That was thrown at me as a sort of a peace movement, peace offering, a roundabout. I don't like either one of them, so I don't know.
He's talking where Cromwell came onto Third, just to make sure you know where he's talking.
Yeah, no, there's a traffic light there.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
Any other comments or discussion from council? I will just add my thanks to YDOT for bearing with us through this process and all of these meetings, and there've been many and sometimes very long, so thank you. I'm sure we'll have some more. We'll try not to put you behind a liquor license permit next time. My only thoughts on this are I'm okay with the Palmer intersection as long as we can still deal with the connection at Boswell and I-80. I think that's something that, I hear a lot about, obviously you guys do. We have to deal with it in some way, and I just don't want to take any of the options off the table, because I'm not sure what's going to be needed to deal with that. So. All right, City Clerk, can you do a roll call, please?
McKinney,
Yes.
Hanson,
No.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Kalikas, absent, Shumway,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Stoner,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That's seven yeses, 1 no, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. That motion carries. So, our next item on the agenda is public comment on non-agenda items. And if the White Out guys don't mind staying for just a minute, I think you might be interested in this. So if you have public comment, please come forward. And if you can introduce yourself for the record, and it's a 5-minute time limit.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Jessica Nada. Nice to see you, Mayor and Council, and thank you, YDOT, for sticking around for just a few more moments. I'll make this really quick. At a later date, I will again touch on my concerns regarding the SDS on the chemical they're using in Laramie to control mosquitoes here, specifically the environmental hazards on that, which I brought up about 2 months ago in July. However, tonight is again about my concerns regarding the Clark Street Viaduct and the deconstruction of that structure. Thank you very much, Council. I was contacted by Steve Cook, the resident engineer with YDOT. He reached out to me saying that he heard I had some concerns, to which I replied quite concisely. I said specifically, I have concerns regarding the murals on the west side of the Clark Street Viaduct, and has that paint been tested for lead? At this time, I have still yet to hear a reply from Mr. Cook with YDOT. My email was sent to him almost 2 weeks ago. I suppose I will follow up again via email and a phone call to Mr. Cook with YDOT. if you see them, maybe let them know. I'm still wondering about whether or not that lead, or that paint has been tested for lead. I understand that council cannot answer questions to public comment, but again, I want to bring this to your awareness and whether or not you have any answers regarding that concern. Thank you very much and have a great night.
Thank you, and thank you for staying with us tonight. All right, any other public comments? No? Okay, just check. All right, we have 30 seconds left. Consideration of future council work session topics. Councilor Schuster,
4th and Clark
for a work session
for a work session. It's got to start there.
on parking?
Yes.
Mayor and council, I'm actually scheduling, I'm working with staff to schedule a work session. Earl Smith and I discussed this today. It would be on, I was just writing it down, you must have read my mind, right-of-way and safety standards, right-of-way safety standards and traffic engineering policies and procedures. Is that okay? And we can use 4th and Clark as a recent relevant example of those standards. But it's clear that as those standards have been applied over the last year, piecemeal at 3 or 4 different locations and streets in town, it's unclear to staff, to council, when council are asked to review what standards are engineering in nature and, objective research standards established, nationwide, and what the role of the traffic commission is. So generally, if that is kind of what you're thinking, I'd love to go that direction. If we would like to have a specific work session on a specific intersection, we can certainly do that, but my thought was to keep it more holistic and look at the whole city. So I'm open to whichever direction you want to go. Thought I'd throw that out there and see
As
if
long
we're
as we
thinking the
use it as
same.
an example while we talk about it, yes.
It's a perfect, relevant example. Thank you. Everybody okay with that? Great. All right, we are out of time. Hopefully nobody had any other requests. Councilor Hanson, item 21, please.
I move that council adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor
Work good.
Schuster. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.